information about these subjects and making, quality analysis. And I think Ben is one of those kind of people that I could see myself working with. Chris Rutowski is another one who is very open-minded, is skeptical about many claims, but he goes about it in a very methodical, let the data and the evidence, lead us to a particular well thought out conclusion. And I appreciate these types of individuals and their tireless efforts to get to the truth. Someone like a Robert Schaefer, someone like this McGahee character. There's others, Michael Shermer, Penn and Teller. Oh my God, those guys are a piece of work. These people obviously have agendas and they aren't open-minded. Their minds obviously have been made up, and they'll do anything they can to denigrate people, subjects, and events. And that is, to me, the antithesis to being objective and open-minded.
Well, in their case, they don't go out to physically investigate anything. They sit down in their armchairs. They say, oh, well, the witnesses, they're mistaken. The people, maybe they're lying. And somebody threw up a hubcap in the sky and that explains the lights or whatever you think it is. They come up with these quick, shoot-by-the-hip explanations because they work from a philosophy that there's nothing to any of this. It's not, well, people are saying strange things. Let's see what is going on, which is a proper scientific approach. It is, there can't be anything to it.
Yeah, these things cannot happen because these things are not real. So if they're not real, they can't happen. Case closed. My mind's made up before I even look at anywhere below the surface facts. They just do not bother doing that. Someone like Chris Rutowski and Ben Radford, and there are others out there, I think, that really do have open minds, but they're willing to put the time in to do the extra amount of legwork and digging it takes to come up with an informed decision about something.
And we need the skeptics because there's too much acceptance of things in the UFO field. And by that, we don't make ourselves credible when we say, well, there's something to the mystery, but you have all this garbage that's going out there. And if you allow that garbage to take hold, as it has over the years, mainstream scientists are less apt to look at it. If you say, look, we've got something strange, it seems to be metallic, it seems to exhibit advanced maneuverability, there are all sorts of strange aspects to the mystery we have to explore. Let's find out what it is. Instead, oh, it must be spaceships. Let's demonstrate in front of the White House or send a petition and demand a disclosure. That's what we have to do, demand disclosure. Let's not investigate anything. Let's rely on someone else to disclose it for us. That way we don't have to work. They know the answers. Tell us, are we really reverse engineering alien technology to do every technological achievement in aviation since 1947?
Yeah, that's a really good question for today's guest.
Oh, yes. This is how we segue to who we have. Now, this guy is what I would call the really, really fascinating character in the field, one of the more fascinating characters with a background that you'd almost think he's a disinformation agent if you look at what he does.
Well, if you look at his work history and his association with the National Institute for Discovery Sciences, Robert Bigelow's NIDS organization, he just seems to crop up in some of the most interesting places. And, over the years, I've not really gotten a chance to get to know Colonel Alexander, who is a doctor of thanatology, I believe. He's been studying the near-death experience phenomenon for decades. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, one of the pioneers in that field, was his dissertation advisor. And I really have gotten to know John a little bit in the last 5 or so years. And the more I get to know him, the more impressed I am with his open-mindedness, his candor. I think there are some things that he's not able to talk about. I think anything he is able to talk about, he's willing to talk about. So I think with a little bit of digging, we might be able to find out some pretty interesting stuff, especially his worldwide journeys around the globe, looking into indigenous cultures and their shamanic traditions. This is a fascinating subject. One of my real, the things that I'm really intrigued about is, the link between the primitive and the ancient and the high tech, that there's some sort of connection there. And I think Dr. John Alexander is one of those few people positioned and willing to go and do the field work and find out the facts about these traditions. And I think he's in a very interesting position where he might be able to be a bridge between the ancient, the primordial, and the modern and the high tech.
And because of his wide range of interests and studies, we have a huge number of questions over at forum.theparacast.com. Really large number of questions. It's going to be one of the situations where we've got a lot to talk about, especially his travels over the past year. This guy just keeps going, even more active than the Energizer Bunny. I'll tell you, this guy keeps going.
If someone his age swimming with humpback whales, you got to hand it to him in the open ocean, no less.
How old is he?
He's got to be pushing 80. I'm sure he's in his mid to late 70s. I'd be surprised if he wasn't.
Well, lately we've seen how these older people are really doing lots of stuff, and don't mention my name, but these people are really older, like Stanton Friedman's over 80, and Don Berliner, who was one of the best recent guests we had, is 84, and they just kept going. People live a lot longer. Of course, even Joan Rivers was 81, and I guess the only reason she died because she had a full work schedule is because something went wrong in a minor surgical procedure. It almost makes you afraid to go to the doctor and let them do anything that'll knock you out, because what happens there? Anyway, we've got Dr. John Alexander, an amazing breadth of interest and coverage coming up on the show. And by the way, don't forget that we have that free copy of Secrets of the Mysterious Valley to send to you. If you subscribe to the Paracast newsletter, go to theparacast.com, theparacast.com. Sign up, join the thousands who've gotten their copies. With Gina and Chris, you're in
the Paracast.
First came Attack of the Rockoids, and it was a critically acclaimed success. And now there is The Coming of the Protectors. A former military intelligence man is contacted by a space woman in a dream that turns out to be a nightmare because evil forces on her distant planet are planning to conquer the Earth. This is gripping science fiction of the classic kind. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Find out more at rockoids.com. That's Rockoids, ROCKOIDS.com.
So here's what happened. I was placing an order online. The site went down. It took hours before it returned, but I had already placed the order with another company. If your site goes down, you could lose business. And if you have a business or personal site, you'll want to know it's easy to run and it will stay online. At iWeb, your site is hosted on one of the most reliable networks in the world. Talk to a sales rep at iWeb.com. Use the promo code TechNightOwl for a special discount.
Have you ever felt like the United States government knows way too much about your financial affairs? I continue to hear stories about property seizures, frozen bank accounts, confiscation of stocks and bonds. It makes me wonder if the U.S. citizen will ever again have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Unfortunately, with the Drug and Money Laundering Act, the IRS Revenue Ruling 6045 of 1984, and the Trading with the Enemy Act and Franklin D. Roosevelt's Executive Order of 1933, some precious metal holdings are subject to government intervention. For this reason, Midas Resources has prepared a report explaining the boundaries of trading precious metals privately. Whether if you have any intention of trading with Midas Resources or not, I have instructed my representatives to give this report out free. Call for your free copy at 1-800-686-2237. When investing, always proceed with caution. Again, call 1-800-686-2237. Exercise your legal right to trade metals privately. 1-800-686-2237.
September is National Preparedness Month, so make it a September to remember by getting your emergency food supply from the Freeze Dry Guy. On sale this month, our 2014 Stew Butter and Potatoes Unit. You'll get one number 10 can each of high-quality Mountain House chicken stew, vegetable stew with beef, pilot crackers, plus the highest quality dehydrated ABC stew, butter and potatoes for a total of 160 1/2 cup servings. Retail value $161.41, but not this month. The Freeze Dry Guy offers the 2014 Stew Butter and Potatoes Unit for only $123.99. $14.93. Save over $37. Plenty of protein, veggies, carbs for energy, and tasty, hearty, storable food with a shelf life of over 25 years. Call 866-404-3663. Free shipping to the lower 48 states. Click freezedryguy.com or call 866-404-3663. That's freezedryguy.com. Hurry! The National Preparedness Month sale ends September 30th from the Freeze Dry Guy. The finest freeze-dried and dehydrated foods available anywhere for long-term storage.
Ouch! My back is out again.
Hi, Dr. Ortman with Wellspring Spinal Care. If you're experiencing neck, mid, or lower back pain, this information is for you. One of the complaints that I hear is patients receive their typical adjustment, only having to repeat them as the pain returns. Putting the bones back in place is only half of the battle. At Wellspring Spinal Care, we have the entire solution. We use the NUCA approach, utilizing three-dimensional x-rays and gentle touch technology to deliver specific correction. We then design a custom nutritional supplement program which provides essential nutrients targeting the areas of concern. With a NUCA approach and proper nutrition, you'll be on your way to a faster and more permanent recovery. To get you on the road to wellness, visit drortman.com. That's drortman.com, or call us today, 952-303-9124. That's 952-303-9124. Wellspring Spinal Care, chiropractic done right.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
Now, of course, I was saying to Dr. John Alexander before we started, are you ready to rock and roll? And he said, lock and load. I was thinking, well, of course, he's in Nevada, which is kind of like gun country, isn't it?
It is pretty much like Arizona, though.
Yeah, well, we don't want to talk about that.
Okay.
I wondered about that. I don't think about it too long because I have never played with guns. I grew up in New York City. I'm not a gun person. And I think I'm in gun central here.
You are.
To be true, yep.
So, John, we had a record-breaking amounts of rainfall here this past week in Arizona, and I heard that Las Vegas and parts of eastern California really got hit hard. Did you guys get a lot of rain there? I heard 15 was closed for a while.
Well, I'm not sure if it's even open yet, but just north of the Moapa Valley, as of yesterday, you had to detour up there. They took significant damage for about 15 miles of I-15.
My goodness. Wow. Well, we broke a record that has been a long-standing record from 1932, I think, someone mentioned. Let's hope that California, your neighbor there, to the west, rather, gets some relief from the drought that they're experiencing, and that Lake Mead gets some water, because we all know how important that is to Las Vegas, where you live. And let's just hope that we're seeing a break in this really bad drought that the Southwest is experiencing.
Yeah, well, we're, a severe drought, not just drought. And the lake has been at all-time lows, and it controls water for several states. It's not just Nevada. The climate is changing.
What do you say to people? And this obviously opens the huge can of worms, Dr. Alexander. What do you say to people who claim that there is no truth to the claim of climate change, especially man-made or human-made or caused climate change?
Yeah, well, they're just not following the data at all. I mean, it's been pretty clear for quite a while that there are changes that are occurring. It's not just warming, and you can't just look at a single trend. But when you follow the trends over a decade or more, you see steady increases. You see the melting of the poles. Yes, there have been fluctuations before, but I think you can pretty well see that when you correlate that with human activity, CO2 in the area, you can see that we're definitely having an effect on it. Low-lying countries are going out, and the problem usually with the climate deniers are that they have economic interests. For instance, real estate that's in low-lying areas that they don't want to see depreciate.
Well, certainly if you're in real estate and you're selling all these beachfront properties, you don't want to lose your market.
Right.
Yeah, we may be sitting on beachfront property if California slips into the ocean from the San Andreas.
Well, that's a pretty big jump, but we have talked about for decades, there have been psychics predicting it would go that far. I'm not sure I'd be selling my land and moving to the mountains just yet. But the amount of stuff that we're looking at, low-lying countries around the world, for the massive amount of the population is, that's where the huge problem lies, is that you're going to have migrations in hundreds of millions of people going to have to move, and they got to go somewhere.
Look, let's go to the background here, Dr. Alexander. A lot of our listeners are very new to the show, new to the subject. Can you maybe crystallize and encapsulate some of your basic experience as a scientist and studying the paranormal so people understand where you're coming from?
Well, in 25 words or less?
Well, a couple of thousand words anyway.
I've been at this for many decades. My doctorate was under Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who was the one who brought both hospice to the United States. My interest has been lifelong, so many decades. UFOs, for instance, I had heard of them in 1947, was interested in following the developments there. Just have been involved in a host of different phenomena. As I was mentioning, when I completed my doctorate, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who is the one who brought both hospice to the United States, and with Ray Moody, coined the whole near-death experience area. She was the head of my committee, and we did work on her workshop, Life, Death, and Transition, seeing how people expand. And since then, and particularly since my second retirement, we have just traveled the world, interacted with shamans. You were just talking about, we are literally just a little over a week ago back from Tonga and diving with whales in the open ocean in their own environment, which is quite exhilarating.
Boy, I'll say that. I'm so jealous. Boy, that's one of my bucket list items is to swim with dolphins, and then if I had the guts to swim with full-size whales. But before we get to that, and we will, and I'm so fascinated with what little that I know of your trips around the world, visiting more primitive cultures and looking at the shamanic traditions. Going back to your studies of near-death experience with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and your lifelong interest in thanatology, I think would be the term. How does that dovetail to having you as one of the lead persons overseeing the development of non-lethal weapons? Do you need a real full understanding of death before you can start to look at development of weapons that won't kill people? How did that connection ever get made?
I'm not sure it does. Of course, my first career was military, and I was in Vietnam. I grew up in with the Special Operations Forces, which is Green Berets, Rangers, etc. So had a personal view of what war brings. Having said that, my second career was at Los Alamos National Laboratory. They're the ones who brought us the nuclear weapons lab. But I was looking at what was going on in the world in the late 1980s, early 1990s, and in my view, conflict had changed considerably, and that the problems and application of force were being caught between doing too little or doing nothing and doing too much. And so thus I thought that with non-lethal weapons, there are ways to apply force without killing people and, creating long-term enemies.
And don't forget to go to theparacast.com to get a free copy of Chris O'Brien's Secrets of the Mysterious Valley,
by signing up for our newsletter.
We're going to have to take a break here, John, but when we come back, I want to dive in a little bit on this subject because it's fascinating to me based on some of the revelations that have come out recently about some of our weapon systems. You're in
the Paracast.
Independently leading the way for the nation. Compelling talk for every political persuasion. We are GCN.
Is there a secret UFO agenda? Do strange creatures from the darkest corners of the mind roam the earth? Is there evidence for mind control, time travel, or devious government conspiracies? Find out the inside scoop on the latest conspiracies, paranormal activity, and Freudian phenomena when you subscribe to Tim Beckley's Conspiracy Journal. It's jam-packed with stories, special book and DVD promotions, and the best news, it's absolutely free, sent right to your mailbox. Plus, a bonus free email newsletter sent out every Friday. Simply send an email with your name and address to Mr. UFO at webtv.net. That's Mr. UFO at webtv.net. Find out what they don't want you to know.
Hi, this is Steve Sanchez, and based on a recent study, it was found that 57 million Americans had legal issues over the last 12 months, but only 60% of those studied sought out the services of a lawyer. Why? In a nutshell, affordability. Well, my friends at Legal Shield have created a solution that can help you not if, but when you need an attorney. For as little as $17 per month, Legal Shield will provide you unlimited access to qualified attorneys at an accomplished law firm for advice and counsel on legal issues, no matter how serious or trivial. For over 40 years and with 1.4 million families across North America, Legal Shield can help you, the loyal GCN listener. Representatives are standing by now to answer your questions, so call them now at 1-855-340-SAVE. That's 1-855-340-7283, or visit them at lsprotection.com. That's lsprotection.com.
Results will vary from case to case.
If you need to say happy birthday, happy anniversary, thank you, or simply I'm thinking of you, ProFlowers.com is the key. ProFlowers has stunning bouquets, like the best-selling 100 blooms for $19.99. Plus, ProFlowers will include a glass vase for free. Sending someone a wonderful surprise of beautiful flowers sent fresh from the fields is easy. Choose the bouquet you like, pick the delivery date, and each order is 100% guaranteed. Plus, all bouquets from ProFlowers are guaranteed to last at least 7 full days. Beautiful, fragrant flowers, picked fresh and sent to your loved one for lasting enjoyment. To get this incredible savings and send someone 100 gorgeous blooms with a free vase for $19.99, go to ProFlowers.com. Click the blue microphone in the top right corner and enter code PLOW. That's ProFlowers.com. Click the mic and enter code PLOW.
Does advertising on the Genesis Communications radio network actually bring positive results? Let's ask
Thomas Baldrick from Freeze Dry Guy.
And do the GCN listeners let you know they heard your ad?
Customers do let us know they've heard Freeze Dry Guy ads on GCN. They seem to be very loyal listeners to GCN, and they stay with those shows, and subsequently they stay with our business too.
Looking for positive results? Contact Lee Wickenhauser at 877-996-4327, extension 107.
This is Dan Pilla. Do you owe the IRS money you can't pay? Are tax debts crippling you? I've defended people from the IRS for over 30 years. I've helped thousands, and I can help you too. I wrote the book on IRS settlement, and I'm telling you, there's no such thing as a hopeless case. Call 800-34-NO-TAX to finally get free of IRS debt. With the IRS's new programs, there's never been a better time to solve your problem. Call 800-34-NO-TAX. That's 800-34-NO-TAX, or my website, danpilla.com.
This is Jerome Clark, author of the UFO Encyclopedia and other books. You're listening to the Paracast.
You frighten me.
That was my intention. With Gene and Chris, the frightening Gene and the genial Chris, Dr. John Alexander. And Chris has been probing his background in research, his work into so-called non-lethal weapons, which I guess if you blow on somebody and you have bad breath, they'll collapse. That's non-lethal.
John, when we posted that you were going to be on the show, of course, we have a question thread at forum.theparacast.com where our listeners are able to, post questions that we then ask of our guests. And one of our signups, Not Even Wrong, has been a forum poster since December 2012. And his first question is, what were some of the more effective non-lethal weapon systems that you designed or that you've seen?
Well, they run a broad spectrum, which has been one of the problems in even discussing it, because we talk about the simple systems such as you see in law enforcement and personal protection, like pepper spray, tasers, rubber bullets, etc., all the way on the high end where we were talking about strategic incapacitation.
Strategic incapacitation?
Yeah. How can you basically eviscerate a complex target set like a nation state, i.e. taking out their infrastructure and doing it in such a way that you don't permanently degrade the systems and you can bring them back online? For instance, if I go after the power structure, if I bomb, with hard bombs on electrical generating facilities, then it's going to take you months to years to bring it back up, as opposed to just being able to degrade the distribution system so that you can basically turn the power back on again relatively quickly after an attack.
Let me just ask you something here. We talk about something like tasers as non-lethal, but sometimes they are.
Absolutely non-lethal.
But people have been known to die from them.
That's actually not true. Nobody's died from the electricity. There are a handful of cases, when I say handful, less than 10, where people have died from falling and, striking their head or something like that. There have been about 3 million of us who have been exposed to taser in training or voluntarily with 0 deaths. So most of the people who have died, they have died after tasers, but they died after breakfast as well. So what's missing is the corollary relationship, and this is greatly exaggerated, certainly in the press. One of the big issues I might point out, if you want to try something, just put in taser and 50,000 volts and see how many hits you get on the news, and then put in taser and milliamps. And the point here is how many volts is totally irrelevant, and we can discuss that, but it's amperage that kills you. And the amperage in taser is down like a Christmas tree light bulb.
Well, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, well, most people don't, and 50,000 sounds like a big number. But you may remember, possibly when you were in school, a lot of people saw this, is when they would take a girl with long hair, have her sit on a Tesla coil and turn it on, and the hair stands out.
Right.
You may have seen the experiment. That's usually at least 250,000 volts, 5 times the voltage of taser, and yet there's absolutely no ill effects.
Because of the lack of amperage.
Correct.
Well, we're dealing with some pretty interesting potential scenarios for developing electrical systems, and Not Even Wrong has a follow-up question, and he's wondering if we have the technology to create hallucinations, like a visual or auditory, using some sort of wireless source in the field. In other words, implanting voices in people, which I heard rumors that we did that in Desert Storm and some of the frontline troops in the trenches there in Kuwait, just over the border in Iraq. Or creating visual hallucinations, for instance. What sort of advances have...
Yeah, there are some things theoretically possible and things you might be able to do in a laboratory. Absolutely not fielded systems, and certainly not in Desert Storm era. I saw lots and lots of the things. And one of the hypotheses was that if you said it's just from an internal audio but to visual and using holographic capability, this is Muhammad says go home or something
right.
like that. But we're quite a ways from that. It's been examined and certainly of interest, but there's a huge difference between what we call basic research, where most of those technologies are, and a fielded system.
Now, let's just look more into any of this. And that is, do you think since we're talking about non-lethal weapons, I want to bring it down to earth a bit because, all right, we have the rubber bullets and we have the tasers. Do you think the fact that we've kind of militarized the police in this country is hurting? Of course, we have these high-profile cases where somebody who supposedly is unarmed gets shot and killed. But if they had, rubber bullets and tasers and stuff like that, would that even happen? And, of course, we should remember that the episode in Ferguson, Missouri is, as of this date, as of the time you hear the show, still very, very much unsettled. So let's just make that clear first. I mean, in Great Britain, police don't use guns very much, do they?
Well, the UK is increasingly arming their folks, particularly as terrorist threat is increasing. If we're talking about Ferguson, let's distinguish between unarmed and dangerous. We're talking somebody 6'4", 300 pounds, which, in my view, for most of us would be, potentially dangerous. Now, obviously, jury's still out on that one, but the facts are certainly not adding up. The problem that you're getting at more directly is having the right weapon at the right place at the right time. When things go bad for the police, for the most part, 95% of the cases, they go bad in an instant on the street. It's the chance encounter, as opposed to the SWAT kinds of operations. We have, say, a hostage barricade situation. We have time to develop tactics and techniques and going after them. But now something like, I think, 17,000 law enforcement agencies around the world are now manning everybody with taser. By the way, the advanced taser systems have cameras on them, and they also have the company has a system that where they're doing, videotaping everything that's going on a recycled basis. Here again, contrary to the popular notion, when these cases get looked at seriously, the cameras normally exonerate the officer in over 90% of the cases.
An important point, we'll get into that, but focus more on our paranormal universe when we get back and about what the military may or may not know about unusual things, psychic phenomena, UFOs, that sort of thing. A reminder, listeners, if you subscribe to the Paracast newsletter, and you do it by going to theparacast.com, theparacast.com, check the subscription form for the newsletter. We'll send you out a free copy of the ebook version of Chris O'Brien's Secrets of the Mysterious Valley. You can't beat that. Dr. John Alexander returns with Gene and Chris. You're in the Paracast.
You're listening to GCN, proudly sponsored by UnseenNow.com. Lock down your digital life at UnseenNow.com. This is GCN.
Attack of the Rockoids has been well received by critics and readers alike. It's a thrill-a-minute story you'll never forget. A former U.S. military intelligence officer is haunted by intense dreams about a beautiful woman pleading for his help after a terrible battle in outer space. But the dreams turn out to be true and thrust him into a telepathic love affair with a woman whose faraway planet is intent on destroying the Earth. And now the gripping tale continues in The Coming of the Protectors. It's the second book of the Rockoids trilogy, a galaxy-spanning adventure that pits our hapless heroes against powerful, fanatical enemies that threaten the lives of freedom-loving beings everywhere. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Classic science fiction at its best, available now. For more details, visit rockoids.com. That's ROCKOIDS.com.
Have you heard? Proactive Plus is faster and better than ever. Stay tuned for a $1 million bottle giveaway, and you'll also receive free shipping. Do you have troubled skin? Acne? Well, we have great news. With Proactive Plus, your acne can heal, and you can help prevent new breakouts from happening. Don't miss this limited time offer. Give us a call at 800-538-5252 because we're going to let 1 million people try Proactive Plus risk-free and get 2 free gifts and also receive free shipping when you call right now. You heard it. This offer won't last long. So call Proactive Plus now and you'll receive a 60-day risk-free trial of Proactive Plus, 2 free extras, and free shipping. Call 800-538-5252. This is our exclusive radio offer, never on TV. Get your risk-free 60-day trial of Proactive Plus with free shipping. That's right, free shipping. Don't wait. Call 800-538-5252. That's 800-538-5252.
Summertime is save big time at Herbal Healer Academy. Long-term customers know summer is the time to stock up at herbalhealer.com. And for new customers, welcome to the web's best place to save on vitamins, minerals, and more. Log on for summer specials, including all sizes of colloidal silver, colloidal minerals, and intestinal freedom on sale. Choose from Herbal Healer's great variety of weight loss products like apple cider vinegar, Hoodia, and Metabolic Complex and Pro-Metabolic, all on sale now. Also, the anti-parasite intestinal freedom and Wormwood Plus Complex, plus stevia liquid sweetener and the super enzymes, all on sale for summer at herbalhealer.com. As always, we offer certificate correspondence courses in natural medicine. Enjoy same-day shipping and free online newsletter. Log on now to herbalhealer.com and look for summer specials to save big with our nation's leader in supplying quality natural medicine and education since 1988. Herbal Healer Academy.
At 30dayfoodsupply.com, you can now purchase a one-of-a-kind product not available anywhere else. A meatless burger dry mix in 4 delicious flavors. With our new Oregon Trail Foods vegan burgers, all you do is add water and fry. They need no refrigeration. They're packaged in Mylar bags with an oxygen absorber for a long shelf life. They're non-GMO. They're gluten, soy, nut, and chemical-free, but they're loaded with flavor. And a good source of carbs and protein, yet low in sodium. Flavors include Italian, spicy Mexican, 6 vegetable, and black bean olive. Go to 30dayfoodsupply.com or call 541-229-0010 and order today. Eat them every day, take them camping, or save them for an emergency. Check them out at 30dayfoodsupply.com and click on the vegan burger icon. That's 30dayfoodsupply.com, where all of our products are produced in Oregon by Oregon Trail Foods. 30dayfoodsupply.com.
This is Jacques Vallée. You're listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
With Gene and Chris on the Paracast, we're talking to Dr. John Alexander, who's been there and done that in so many different ways. It's just amazing. Chris?
You know, we're taping this on the 13th year anniversary of 9/11, and in these intervening 13 years, John, we have seen a dramatic, almost breathtaking militarization of our police forces in this country. Where do you come down on this?
What I might mention, I assume you're putting on my website, but 4 years ago, I did a monograph. I was a senior fellow for the Joint Special Operations University and wrote one called Convergence, looking at how Special Operations Forces and SWAT in particular were converging, seeing the missions converge. Now, this is a very complex issue. saw a report yesterday from the Pentagon, and right now Congress has been saying, let's stop transitioning military equipment. As they looked at it, what they found that 96% of the equipment that had been transferred to law enforcement agencies was not military specific, meaning it included tents and first aid kits and communications gear and things of this nature. Only 4% is in this remaining category, and that's where you see the APCs, Bearcats, and MRAPs, mine-resistant vehicles, and that. In my view, those are getting overplayed, probably should never have gone to particularly small departments, because what you are seeing for the last few decades is a dramatic increase in dynamic entry. This is where blow the door off and go in on drug raids and things like that. And the problem with SWAT teams is they are very expensive to develop and maintain. If you have them, you're going to use them. And you may not be using them in the most advantageous way, and particularly when you're trying to develop trust and confidence in the population. And that's what you saw in Ferguson, just a really overstatement of force dramatically, should not have been used at all.
What do you do then to reduce this problem? Because we really don't need to generate the furor which that episode did. How do we reach a balance? And maybe that's the whole question here.
Yep.
How do you give the police departments the stuff they need to fight crime, but not overwhelm them with hardware, and maybe they just aren't up to the task of utilizing it to its best advantage?
Yeah, well, even getting it, what people have to think through is the total life cycle on it, because when you get the sort of advanced technology, the problem then becomes it's expensive and difficult to maintain. Then you've got the issue of training with it. Now, remember that 80% of the police forces in the United States are under 25 people. So when you do that and you say, hey, we're going to give you this advanced stuff, you go, well, what are you going to do with it? And how are you going to maintain it and use it, and potentially inappropriately? I think a lot of education has to go into senior law enforcement. I think a lot of people were looking at, what went on. Chiefs of police, I'm sure IACP, the International Association of Chiefs of Police, were evaluating what was going on and saying, no, this was definitely an overstatement in the use of the presence of force, and obviously misapplied. You saw that with their response to the media and a number of people who were gassed and things like that. Got to remember that the mission is to protect and to serve. Now, you may or may not know that my son is a captain with a major police force, happens to head internal affairs, and we discuss these things continuously. One of his points is that in his career, which has been about 20-some years now, he has seen a significant increase in the violent response in people, say, 18 to 25, meaning they're much more prone to, a violent confrontation than they were even when he joined the police force. We can discuss the video game aspect of it, or the
media's wanting PG violence and murder. Do you think the media has something to do with that, in the way that this culture glorifies violence?
If you go and watch the TV shows, what amazes me is the incongruence. We love 24. We like Jack Bauer, breaking fingers and cutting people to get the information. then when it happens in real life, they go, oh my God, how could that possibly happen? You go, well, you've developed a culture that expects that.
There's also another TV show called Chicago PD, where the focus is on this unit that stretches the boundaries of police procedure to do things. But that's where you always see it. You know, you see them going to the perp or suspected perp and knocking their heads into the wall or on the table and stuff that, you know, if it happened in the real world, there'd be lawsuits and everything else. Listen, let's move away from this.
Well, there was another series that just finished called Gang Related, and that was doing the identical thing. In their case, it was supposed to be LAPD. And they were using tactics and procedures that would, frankly, get you arrested. And yet people have believed, and this is, by the way, IACP did put out commentary on that regarding Ferguson, saying the media is part of the problem here because they have developed these expectations that are just totally ridiculous and no basis in reality, and yet people start seeing those as the expected way for law enforcement to respond. Now, let's not totally exonerate law enforcement. So
yeah, because they're being programmed by the same culture.
Yeah. Well, and they do. Again, my son is involved where they do background research on all potential candidates for their academy. And one of these is, 90% of the people who apply cannot, pass the preliminary background checks. He even pointed out that they were getting a lot of applicants who were coming out of the state correction systems, i.e. they were from the penitentiary, and said, they had backgrounds that they wouldn't even hire them, and yet they were coming out of the law enforcement system.
Wow. Oh, boy. Well, it's going to get a lot more interesting before it gets any more normalized. I think that our culture is ratcheting up the violence angle in interactions between law enforcement and the community, whether it's justified or not. But I think that that's got to have a detrimental effect, I think, overall on how people respond to stressful situations when violence is employed, when non-lethal violence is employed. And these are sticky subjects that really deserve their own show. Let's kind of move on a little bit here and talk about how you transitioned from your military career and in your work at Los Alamos and then into your involvement, let's say, with the National Institute for Discovery Science, Robert Bigelow's organization, NIDS, that was formed back in the, I think, early 90s. How did you get involved with Bigelow initially? I never really fully understood how you were brought on board as an advisor, and give us a little bit of background of what the initial vision of NIDS was and why Bigelow has spent so much money looking into subjects that are fairly fringe to, I'm sure, many of your contemporaries in the military and in the scientific realms. Could you give us a thumbnail sketch of that?
I'll tell you what, let's just do the break now, because he's not going to give you a 20-second thumbnail.
No.
Otherwise, it's going to be the smallest thumbnail we've ever seen. Miniaturized for use on the new Apple Watch, tiny thumbnails or something like that, or nano thumbnails. That would be really incredible. All right? So Dr. John Alexander will talk about Bigelow, NIDS, all that stuff. A constant subject of discussion in our forums. With Gene and Chris, you're in
the Paracast.
Great minds think alike. The network for the independent-minded. The Genesis Communications Network. GCN.
How many good people procrastinate? When was the last time you updated your last will and testament, your living will, and your healthcare power of attorney? If you could get these documents included with your Legal Shield membership for no additional charge, wouldn't it just make sense to have the peace of mind of owning a Legal Shield membership? Worry less and live more with lsprotection.com. That's lsprotection.com or call 855-340-SAVE. That's 855-340-7283.
Results will vary from case to case.
Hi, this is Ted Anderson. Have you ever wondered why banks, stockbrokers, investment advisors won't talk about gold IRAs? They've been available since 1986, yet the financial industry won't recognize the value of gold for your retirement. Gold has outperformed paper investments, yet no word about IRAs. If you would like to have gold for your retirement, call 800-686-2237. Don't get left behind by rising inflation and low returns. Call 800-686-2237. Secure your future and call 1-800-686-2237.
The human body is extraordinary. Despite all the stresses we inflict upon it, it still works hard to stay in balance. Thousands upon thousands of people rely upon Heart and Body Extract to help their body stay balanced. This excellent 100% natural herbal formula helps maintain healthy blood pressure levels, cleans arteries, promotes good circulation, balances cholesterol, and more. HB Extract, paired with healthy lifestyle choices like good nutrition and exercise, can give you a life free of pain, sickness, and fear. Recapture your youthful vitality and experience your body healing itself with the aid of HB Extract. It's extremely effective and it starts working in just days. Visit hbextract.com to learn more and to read scores of testimonials from satisfied customers. And we've never increased our price in over 10 years. That makes Heart and Body Extract as great a value now as it was the first day we sold it. A healthy heart is a happy heart. Call 866-295-5305 or go to hbextract.com.
Welcome back to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
The question from Chris O'Brien on the table on the Paracast with Dr. John Alexander. Tell us about your involvement with Bigelow's efforts.
Well, it started very unexpectedly. I had seen him once. I did not really know who he was. I got a call one Sunday morning living in Santa Fe saying that he was interested in these unusual topics and did I have anything of interest? And I said, it's funny you should call today. It was a Sunday morning because in my kitchen at this moment are guys like Hal Puthoff and some others that you probably wouldn't know, and we're here discussing just that. And then over time he decided that he wanted to form NIDS and to look at two specific areas. One was UFOs and the other was continuation of consciousness beyond death. Both areas that I had been involved in previously in various aspects. So, and invited me over, agreed to do a halftime basis. He brought Colin Kelleher on to run the organization. As you know, I had a number of folks, most of them PhD level individuals. We put together a world-class science board, and as I say, the rest is history.
What was your particular role in the organization? I know you were advising him on a variety of projects and subjects, but what was your role? This whole idea of continuation of consciousness, what was his motivation for this? As a businessman, I'm having a hard time reconciling this particular interest with anything that could be applicable in a commercial sense.
Yeah, well, when we had first met him, remember, he was one of the sponsors of the conference at MIT with John Mack on abductions. What I didn't know at the time that I met him was kind of surprised that within 30 days prior to that, he had lost his son. Personal interest has a lot of driving force in those issues. The other is, of course, it's an issue that faces 100% of us. So everybody has some vested interest in the outcome, certainly.
We have a question on our forum at forum.theparacast.com that is kind of wondering about that. And this comes from one of our number one posters here at forum.theparacast.com. He's received more likes for his post than he's posted, which is always a good sign in my book. And he's wondering, Colonel, what connections, if any, have you discovered between near-death experiences and other paranormal phenomena, such as poltergeist activity, psi phenomenon, or UFOs?
Yeah, I've actually written to this and spoken several times. In my view, one of the big problems we have in all of phenomenology is the tendency to stovepipe, meaning we look at the things you described as if they're individual and have set boundaries. And I think that's detrimental. I mean, let me just give you an example with near-death experience. I think if we could rename it, we probably would. It's like flying saucers. Yeah, you'd probably rename that. Even UFOs, you'd like to rename that. And the problem is that as you get into the observation of the phenomena, you start finding things that press the boundaries. Now, in my view, there is some sort of interconnection between all of these sorts of things, and I think that consciousness is certainly a piece of that. Even though some of them are real and have, effects in physical reality as we know it, it seems to be beyond. Let me take shamans, for instance, because I've met with shamans all over the world. In the West, we tend to think of physical reality as we know it and, quote, the spirit world as something that's separate and distinct. And yet in other cultures, these are totally connected, and shamans often move seamlessly back and forth between the two. So it's your worldview that's really quite different. And the Western worldview, of course, is driven by material science, which says, if we can just get the God particle, Higgs boson, or whatever, that we can cut reality into smaller and smaller pieces and eventually find how everything goes together. This does not account for what we see in non-local phenomena and the various phenomena that you've described here.
So, in other words, what you're saying is this reductionist tendency of modern Western science to try to reconcile the stovepiping, as it were, has really been a dead end up to this point. And what you're suggesting is that there has to be more of a open-minded, broad-based approach to these subjects in terms of their potential interconnectedness. We're going to have to go to break soon here, but I'm really intrigued by your comment that many of these phenomena are actually connected on some level. And I'm wondering if this, for instance, could be one of the reasons why the Sherman Ranch effort by NIDS and Bigelow's team up there, with your involvement, I must add, it kind of hit a dead wall, because reductionist science requires replication of data, and in order to study it in a scientific manner. So with this stumbling block in place, what kind of effort do you see that we need to enact to move forward in this and try to get Western science to get out of that reductionist mode?
Are we breaking, or do you want me to answer that?
Why don't you start on the answer, and then we'll do the break in about a minute and a half or so.
Okay. Well, I actually wrote to this in my last book in what I called precognitive sentient phenomena. The ranch has a number of very amazing incidents that happened, absolutely real. And my point, which goes along the lines that you're outlining, is the phenomena, whatever it was definitely in control. It was definitely sentient. When I said precognitive, it seemed to know how we would respond to various stimuli before they were even given to us. And they were certainly phenomena. So this whole notion of the trickster or something that's been around forever seems to have a lot of validity, that something else is in control, pulling the strings, and almost no matter how you went about, as we did in this case, instrumenting the ranch, something different would show up that would not be recorded in areas that should have been recorded.
Stalking the tricksters.
Yeah.
I couldn't have put it better myself. And I wasn't even there.
Well, he's trying to pretend that he was. I'm joking. But it's really interesting how we have this element that just kind of confounds you, especially in this crazy field where you think you kind of have things settled down. And you have a handle on what's going on, and suddenly something out of left field gets in there, and it just messes up everything like it's a plot. You kind of think,
with us.
Right, it's like the Men in Black. You know, you talk about Men in Black. Someone there, some element, physical, whatever, it comes in there, and they find ways to turn things upside down and send you off in a new direction, which, of course, may be misdirection because that direction has nothing to do with anything and nothing to do with the reality of the phenomenon that you're trying to research. Isn't that a convoluted answer and speculation to start more discussion with Dr. John Alexander and Gene and Chris? You're in
the Paracast.
Do you need a website? Well, you can get a great deal on hosting services with Namecheap's legendary coupon code. They're offering substantial hosting discounts on shared hosting, business hosting, VPS hosting, reseller hosting, and even dedicated servers. Namecheap is preferred by millions. It's backed by a money-back guarantee. Use the coupon code LEGENDARY to cash in on the special deal at Namecheap.com, Namecheap.com.
First came Attack of the Rockoids, and it was a critically acclaimed success. And now there is The Coming of the Protectors. A former military intelligence man is contacted by a space woman in a dream that turns out to be a nightmare because evil forces on our distant planet are planning to conquer the Earth. This is gripping science fiction of the classic kind. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Find out more at rockoids.com. That's Rockoids, ROCKOIDS.com.
On the average, Americans work between 45 to 50 years hoping to build up enough wealth to retire and live out their golden years. Unfortunately, with taxation, the rising cost of food, energy, housing, and medical, many retirees are forced to live below the poverty line. Is this a flaw-free enterprise, or is our monetary unit we call the Federal Reserve Note forcing us into perpetual debt, ensuring inflation and higher taxes? These questions and more can be answered by reading G. Edward Griffin's book, The Creature from Jekyll Island. Congressman Ron Paul states it's what every American needs to know about central bank power. A gripping adventure into the secret world of international banking cartel. Hi, this is Ted Anderson. I will give a silver dollar from the early 1900s to anyone who purchases this book. Call 1-800-686-2237 and order a copy today. It's critical that the public be made aware of the system. Call and order your copy today at 1-800-686-2237. That's 1-800-686-2237.
The Genesis Communications Network is one of America's premier broadcasters of captivating talk radio. We thank you for listening. Now, just imagine, there are thousands of people who are just as passionate about radio as you are. But what you may not realize is how easy and affordable it is to advertise with us. Radio commercials for your business could be heard on hundreds of radio stations across the U.S. every day. We can help you by creating an effective radio advertising campaign for your company. From script writing to producing your commercial, just like the one you're listening to right now. No other network provides the level of customer service we do. When it comes to radio advertising, we are your one-stop shop. And no matter how big or small your business is, we can help. Email us at advertise@gcnlive.com, and an experienced advertising executive will help you take the first step towards driving more customers to your business or website. Advertise@gcnlive.com. Easy, affordable, effective.
A little over a year ago, I began to do a lot of research into why, even if I had a pretty good-sized meal, that I was still starving. And my research led me to a well-known fact that most of the soils that we grow our crops on here in the United States and across the industrialized world are almost completely depleted of almost all of the key minerals and trace elements that our bodies need to rebuild themselves, fight off cancer, and be healthy. I then searched out the best vitamin and mineral company out there and discovered Youngevity. The Youngevity products are designed to give you the real nutrition you need, and once you've got that, you don't have to eat as much to be satisfied. I've lost 37 pounds in 2 months, simply getting the vitamins and minerals I need. Check it out for yourself. It's incredible. Go to InfoWarsTeam.com today and order your first canister of Beyond Tangy Tangerine Complete Multivitamin Mineral Complex Dietary Supplement. That's InfoWarsTeam.com.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
Let me ask you, Dr. Alexander, when we get into tricksterish kind of elements, is that what brought about things like Men in Black?
Well, quite possibly. Remember, the Men in Black stories, like all of these others, vary considerably from real people who, come in and supposedly interrogate people to others where they talk about, how their clothes don't bend or wrinkle, how they look a little strange, how the vehicles go out and are either out of dated or just disappear. So there's a wide range. Let me transition this to the UFO phenomena, because that, I think, is kind of classic here. Because one of the questions I ask is, what do you mean when we say UFO? Because we've got little balls of light to huge craft, more than a mile across in physical reality, and thousands of variations in between. And so the variations are problematic if you go to the extraterrestrial hypothesis. So which UFOs do you want to study? Balls of light, the big ones, the triangles, et cetera, et cetera. And it gets just every time, like I say, you think you got it knocked, all of a sudden you get a different permutation. And that gets back to who or what is controlling the phenomena.
We used to have these 7-year cycles. We used to have the ley lines. We had a book years ago by a French UFO researcher called Flying Saucers and the Straight Line Mystery. But every time you try to put a handle on it, the patterns changed.
Right. That's exactly what I think we're discussing.
Let me take that one step further. It's one thing to identify the patterning and consistency within the phenomenon. I have found personally from my investigations that as long as I don't publicize these patterns, they tend to supply me with the data that gets me even more worked up and thinking that I'm on the right track. And as soon as I open my mouth, invariably the pattern will go 180 degrees on me. That's kind of what led me in a direction of a tricksterish type energy or mechanism that seem to be at play here. And it's almost like a thermostat, as Jacques Vallée mentioned in several of his books, that there seems to be an equilibrium that has to be established. And once you get off on a particular tangent, you get data that is diametrically opposed to that tangent, and it seems to re-equalize the equation, if you will. And I'm wondering, how did NIDS reconcile this very perplexing and, I must say, frustrating problem?
Well, I don't think we did reconcile it. We got to the point of saying this is reality, and we certainly acknowledge the complexity of the issue. In my book on UFOs, the first line that I wrote is UFOs are real. And I mean things that are sometimes in physical reality. The last paragraph discusses whatever this is, it is more complex than we ever imagined, and maybe more complex than we could imagine. So I think we're, in all of these phenomena, we're at the front end. And people say, well, what is the answer? I don't think there is the answer or singularity. And I think that we're at the point where we need to get the best and brightest minds and make it possible for them to, study these issues. And I say so without risking your reputation or their career.
Yeah, because these are taboo subjects, and until we can get the stigma detached from them, we're not going to be able to get those brightest minds, as you put it, to, in all confidence, be able to devote, their considerable intellects on these questions. And I really think it's important, and that's one thing that I really took away from the interview that you did for the Disclosure Dialogue video, where you said we need to get this stigma off these subjects so that we can apply some of the brightest minds to this conundrum. So how do
I would say that the things that we're talking about are at least as complex as AIDS and cancer and that. So if you look at the amount of resources that are applied to those topics and having trouble, you can imagine where we are when we equate that to the study of these various phenomena.
We were talking about interconnectedness. Where do you think the connecting points lie between all these various phenomena? We have obviously the whole subject of human awareness and human consciousness, and we also have something that's very tricksterous out there that seems to second guess very effectively and predetermine our responses on various stimuli that we're trying to study. Where do you find those connecting points, and how would you describe them at this point?
Well, certainly consciousness is a key issue, and that is that you start seeing things that you expect. You mentioned before how phenomena have morphed as you get more and more involved in it, and it seems to change. One example that I like to use also comes from Jacques Vallée work, mentioned in the book, but there was an example in the early 20th century, just after the turn of the century. A guy who's, I believe, in the state of Washington and drives around, and he said, here was this heptagonal UFO hovering, and I could see every rivet in it. Now, what was interesting about that is at that time, advanced space technology and rivets would have been very advanced, and yet within 50 years, we would know no way in hell would you use rivets in some kind of extraterrestrial craft. So the point here was it was advanced of human consciousness at that time, but not beyond where we were going to go in the very near future.
Well, it almost sounds like we're being kind of tricked to go after a particular carrot that seems to couch itself in a way that we're able to cognize and understand, yet it's not so high-tech that it appears, as Arthur C. Clarke would say, like magic. And we do have, obviously, examples of inexplicable phenomenal events that the witness just could not possibly explain. But do you think that we're being kind of gradually led or tricked into going in a particular direction in terms of technology and awareness of consciousness?
Oh, that's hard to say. I mean, we're obviously advancing in some degree. I'm not sure our social applications are keeping up with the technology, but where does all that? I don't know. Quite frankly, that's a ponderance that's beyond my understanding.
Let me throw out a theory for you, which I'll start here, and then you could do whatever you want with it or just send it back. And that is that maybe the UFO phenomenon is here to lead us in different directions. And what do we mean by that? Well, I'll explain more or less in our next segment with Dr.
Lead us off planet, Gene.
Well, that's certainly a part of it. Dr. John Alexander with Gene and Chris, you're in
Paracast.
Listening to GCN, proudly sponsored by UnseenNow.com. Lock down your digital life at UnseenNow.com. This is GCN.
Graphic Converter is the image manipulation tool for the rest of us. It does not use any database. You get full control of all your files. Want to view the images of a folder? Drag it into Graphic Converter and a powerful browser opens up to show your image files. You could use it for slideshows. You could use it to import images from digital cameras or from scanners. Need to do some image editing? You can do that too in Graphic Converter. Also print catalogs. Convert from so many formats I can't even list them. Download now to see if Graphic Converter is good for you, like 1.5 million other users. Guess what? You could save money when you buy Graphic Converter. Use the coupon code Night Owl. Use the coupon code Night Owl to get a special price for Graphic Converter. Go to lemkesoft.com. That's Lemke soft.com. Lemkesoft.com. Lemke soft.com.
We live in a complicated society. Stressful issues are always popping up. Have you ever been treated unfairly by someone? Have you ever been overcharged for a repair? Have you ever signed a contract or a document? Worried about identity theft? How many times have you been in those unique situations where you just wanted to call an attorney to find out if you're right or wrong, or what your legal rights are? But every time you think about calling an attorney, what do you think about first? That's right. Who do you call, and how much will it cost? Our friends at Legal Shield have found a solution. With a nationwide network of 6,900 attorneys who average 19 years of experience, Legal Shield's law firms take over 40,000 calls per week helping their members. For less than $20 per month, you can have access to Legal Shield on everything from the trivial to the traumatic. Let Legal Shield stand up for your rights at lsprotection.com. That's lsprotection.com. Or call 855-340-SAVE, 855-340-7283.
Results will vary from case to case.
Summertime is save big time at Herbal Healer Academy. Long-term customers know summer is the time to stock up at herbalhealer.com. And for new customers, welcome to the web's best place to save on vitamins, minerals, and more. Log on for summer specials, including all sizes of colloidal silver, colloidal minerals, and intestinal freedom on sale. Choose from Herbal Healer's great variety of weight loss products like apple cider vinegar, Hoodia, and Metabolic Complex and Pro-Metabolic, all on sale now. Also, the anti-parasite intestinal freedom and Wormwood Plus Complex, plus stevia liquid sweetener and the super enzymes, all on sale for summer at herbalhealer.com. As always, we offer certificate correspondence courses in natural medicine. Enjoy same-day shipping and free online newsletter. Log on now to herbalhealer.com and look for summer specials to save big with our nation's leader in supplying quality natural medicine and education since 1988. Herbal Healer Academy.
This alert just came in. This special announcement is for business owners and leaders of organizations who've been waiting for the right time to build. General Steel has made it impossible to wait any longer with rock-bottom prices that could save you thousands. That's right, General Steel, America's leader in pre-engineered structures, is offering buildings at prices you will never see again. Don't miss these prices. A 50 by 100 for $35,000. You heard right, that's 5,000 square feet for $35,000. Manufacturers, if you need a larger building, try a 100 by 100 commercial building for $129,000. You can't afford to rent with these prices. Imagine a 70 by 100-foot church building for under $69,000. With the economy improving and interest rates still at historic lows, you can't afford to wait. So call 866-91-STEEL. Lock in your price now. Call 866-91-STEEL. That's 866-917-8335.
This is Leslie Kane, and I'm with the Coalition for Freedom of Information, and you are listening to the Paracast.
With Gene and Chris on the Paracast, we're talking about flying saucers being here to make us think, as Ray Palmer said, 50, 60 years ago? I don't recall. Long time ago. But the point being here is that the presence of UFOs got us thinking in terms of building spacecraft, in terms of building hovercraft. So, of course, we have all these theories here that some of these developments are all part of reverse engineering the crashed spaceships at Roswell. But maybe the presence of the UFOs and what they do gives us clues to the future. And, of course, Chris mentioned one, which is to bring us off planet. We're being told by the phenomenon, we've got to get out there. whether to escape a disaster or just part of our evolution, but also in the meantime, our scientific developments are brought forward by what we observe and what we know about these visitors, who and what they are. Dr. Alexander?
Well, another thing that I did address again in the last book briefly is what I call my law of appropriate complexity.
That sounds appropriately complex.
The law of appropriate complexity. And what I mean by that is that every person on the planet is faced with a series of problems and understandings. And there are simple people who are worried about, where's the next meal coming from, and that's the sort of thing they worried about, all the way up to theoretical physicists dealing on, the Maslow hierarchy of needs and whatnot. But what it appears to me is that as you advance and you get more and more understanding at whatever level you're at, just as you're about to get things figured out and understand everything, all of a sudden you find a whole new order of magnitude of complexity that's presented to you. And again, you follow through that stage, and just as you think you got that one nailed, oops, here comes something, even more complex than what you were dealing with before. As I've said to people who study these phenomena, you open the door, and it's like, wow, this is different. And then you start to figure it out, and then here comes even more and wilder changes. And yet when you try to explain some of these things to people who are back, 3 or 4 iterations, you just get, well, you must be crazy. That doesn't happen.
Right. Well, that opens up that axiom. The more you know you don't know.
Right.
Well, this kind of brings us to an interesting point here, I think, in our history as a potential spacefaring species. And that is the whole idea that's been proposed of late of a breakaway civilization. Richard Dolan, Joseph Farrell, there's been a number of researchers whose work I admire, who are starting to come to the conclusion that maybe we have latched onto some technological breakthroughs on some exalted level of our civilization, and some individuals and some well-funded efforts have continued and forged ahead in secret, ahead of where the your average person would have any sort of awareness. Where do you come down on this whole idea of a breakaway civilization? And is it possible that many of the types of objects and events that are described as UFOs could be possibly secret military technology, for instance? What do you think of this whole idea that maybe a vast majority of these sightings, or a sizable majority, may be us in secret?
Yeah, I put that as a very, very low probability. Let me address the military issue first, and that is, we have been at conflict since, as you pointed out, this is 9/11, 2001. We have spent $4 trillion in that process, and as of last night, about to ramp up again in the Middle East. And if you were doing that, I would anticipate seeing some dramatic leaps in technology, because there's a great impetus to, no boots on the ground and all of that. And yet, what have we seen? Well, we've seen the JAS, the Joint Strike Fighter, which is now the F-35. Is it advanced? Yes. Is that a quantum leap over where we've been? No. So if you look at the technology, and there are technologies that have improved. Bionics, for instance, what we've done because of the unfortunate incidents of people losing limbs, made dramatic advances there, but nothing that makes the big leap. Now, in the UFO arena and the whole nonsense that Greer and others put out about, well, we have reverse engineered and we have free energy and they're hiding it. That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. if we had little widgets that were flying around, we had reverse engineered a UFO, for instance, in my view, it's not about that. It would be about a fundamental different source of energy, which would change geopolitics in the world. This is where I have taken on.
Well, it would change the bottom line for the energy companies, that's for sure.
Well, I totally disagree. I don't think it would make any difference whatsoever. And here's where you get into global economics. And this is where, the people who own the current energy companies would own the new technology. The money is concentrated in the hands of so few people that the ultra-rich would be the ones involved. They would just go, okay, we're getting money from a different source. Yeah, you'd have a few people who would probably make money in the process. But overall, the funding of the world is concentrated, as I say, in the 1%. And you find that the ultra-rich have more in common with each other than they do with any nationality, which might be their happenstance of birth. And they, do coordinate some of these things. So, no, I don't see this as any need to hide the technology, as it would make things a lot easier for them, too.
Well, I would counter by saying, if we're the strongest military power on the planet with conventional technology, why reveal your ace in the hole?
Because for $4 trillion, people say that have, in my view, no understanding of what is going on in the military today. I get a compendium from the State Department twice a day. I also follow a lot of the websites and what's going on. The military is drawing down. Their funds are being cut dramatically. Anything that would give you a significant leg up would have been used by now. I mean, they are literally at wit's end as to what to do in funding of the military and application. Anything that would give you a huge technological advantage would definitely be rolled out. You also have to remember, and we talked before about the development of technology, from the time you get a breakthrough in weapon technology, average time is about 20 years before you field a fielded system. And, 15 years is really moving fast.
Yeah, it's fast tracking it.
Yeah.
And then it's another 20 years for them to reveal it to the U.S. public or to
Well,
whomever.
now, usually you see it. Depends on what technologies we're talking about. But with huge expenses, most of them are quite visible.
Okay, so when we come back, let's talk about the possibility that at least some percentage of UFO sightings could be some sort of exotic psychotronic weapons platforms, whatever, that are not quite, they're in the operational stage, but they haven't been divulged yet.
We have Dr. John Alexander joining us. You're here with Gene and with Chris, exploring the unknown and what makes it unknown. You're in
the Paracast.
Not just an alternative to the mainstream media. We're the premier independent talk radio network. We are GCN.
First came Attack of the Rockoids, and it was a critically acclaimed success. And now there's The Coming of the Protectors. A former military intelligence man is contacted by a space woman in a dream that turns out to be a nightmare because evil forces on our distant planet are planning to conquer the Earth. This is gripping science fiction of the classic kind. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Find out more at rockoids.com. That's Rockoids, ROCKOIDS.com.
So here's what happened. I was placing an order online. The site went down. It took hours before it returned, but I'd already placed the order with another company. If your site goes down, you could lose business. And if you have a business or personal site, you'll want to know it's easy to run and it will stay online. At iWeb, your site is hosted on one of the most reliable networks in the world. Talk to a sales rep at iWeb.com. Use the promo code TechNightOwl for a special discount.
Time and time again.
You need to come here and help us. We need assistance, please.
Those we should be able to depend on let us down.
Federal and state and local officials saying help is on the way. Well, the folks here in Bell Harbor say, show me.
Don't depend on the government to save you. Take action now so that you're prepared for the next disaster with MyPatriotSupply.com. Get the best prices on storable food, non-GMO seeds, water filtration devices, home canning equipment, survival and self-reliance books, and more at MyPatriotSupply.com. Call 866-229-0927.
We are hurting down here and we need help immediately.
Before it's time to survive, it's time to prepare. MyPatriotSupply.com. MyPatriotSupply.com.
The human body is extraordinary. Despite all the stresses we inflict upon it, it still works hard to stay in balance. Thousands upon thousands of people rely upon Heart and Body Extract to help their body stay balanced. This excellent 100% natural herbal formula helps maintain healthy blood pressure levels, cleans arteries, promotes good circulation, balances cholesterol, and more. HB Extract, paired with healthy lifestyle choices like good nutrition and exercise, can give you a life free of pain, sickness, and fear. Recapture your youthful vitality and experience your body healing itself with the aid of HB Extract. It's extremely effective and it starts working in just days. Visit hbextract.com to learn more and to read scores of testimonials from satisfied customers. And we've never increased our price in over 10 years. That makes Heart and Body Extract as great a value now as it was the first day we sold it. A healthy heart is a happy heart. Call 866-295-5305 or go to hbextract.com.
Have you heard? Proactive Plus is faster and better than ever. Stay tuned for a 1,000,000 bottle giveaway, and you'll also receive free shipping. Do you have troubled skin? Acne? Well, we have great news. With Proactive Plus, your acne can heal, and you can help prevent new breakouts from happening. Don't miss this limited time offer. Give us a call at 800-538-5252 because we're going to let 1,000,000 people try Proactive Plus risk-free and get 2 free gifts and also receive free shipping when you call right now. You heard it. This offer won't last long. So call Proactive Plus now and you'll receive a 60-day risk-free trial of Proactive Plus, 2 free extras, and free shipping. Call 800-538-5252. This is our exclusive radio offer, never on TV. Get your risk-free 60-day trial of Proactive Plus with free shipping. That's right, free shipping. Don't wait. Call 800-538-5252. That's 800-538-5252.
Hi, my name is Richard Dolan. You're listening to the Paracast.
Secret weapons, incredible technologies. Are UFOs perhaps simply things that we developed, not alien or paranormal visitors of one kind or another? Dr. John Alexander is here with Gene and Chris. Dr. Alexander, are a lot of the things we see and call UFOs really our own craft?
Well, in recent years, the UAVs, or what popularly known as drones, have increased dramatically. And remember, when we talk about UFOs, you're just talking about things that you have seen that are flying and you don't understand it. So I would anticipate that sightings would go up dramatically. We've done a lot of work on, signal reduction, commonly known as stealth, sorts of things. So yeah, a lot of them are, and that's been true all along. Now, when you get to the really exotic sightings that have been seen, then absolutely not. If we're talking about the things that appear and disappear and make 45G right-angle turns and things of that nature, then no, this is way, way beyond any technology that's currently in the inventory.
Okay, so where's the line of demarcation? What can we do? What do you think we can do right now with secret weapons? And also going back to the early days of the UFO field, where there's been some speculation that some of the things that we saw during World War II, like the ghost rockets, or the early cases such as Kenneth Arnold, the Roswell crash, they all involve stuff that we had, not stuff that came from some unknown source.
I would not put Roswell in the same category as the other sightings. Now, certainly there have been a series of sightings. It is my view, and this is terribly unpopular, I know, but that Roswell was, in fact, ours, and, exotic for the time, but not super advanced. And I think that the evidence for that is very, very strong. That said, some of the other cases that you mentioned, as I say with UFOs, basically every sensor system we have picks them up. And this is why, in my view, what we need is to, do the step back to try to do analysis. First of all, define what are you talking about? Because I don't think we are at the point of understanding that question yet.
Boy, that's an understatement. Here's an example. I mean, you go through the annals of ufology and you look at all the experts that everybody thinks they know what they're talking about, and book after book, TV show after TV show. But I have yet to see anyone come up with a slam dunk.
Okay, well, let's put it this way. What about the Foo Fighters? We have quite a number of very credible sightings. We have military records from bomber crews and pilots going over Europe, even some fairly credible sightings in the Pacific Theater of these luminous balls that seem to accompany Allied aircraft. They seem to dart in and out. They seem to be coming from the ground up towards the formations of planes. I have not seen any credible explanation that really is able to identify what these objects were, number one, and where they could possibly have been, flown from. But what do you think about the Foo Fighters?
Well, the word, you got a pejorative word in there, and that is flown from. Obviously don't know what they are. They have been a mystery for, 60, 70 years. This is an example of the classic phenomena that you just defy explanation when you try to sort it out. And see, one of the issues that I have with both the UFOs, the true believers and the skeptics, is that they tend to take a select subset of observation and explain that, and then extrapolate from there to the whole, saying, well, if we can explain the balls of light, then I can explain all of UFOs. And
right.
You go, no, it just doesn't seem to work that way.
Yeah, I would agree. So is there a possibility that Foo Fighters were some sort of, exotic technology developed by the Axis powers during World War II and just became operational at the end of the war? Or are we looking at some sort of intervention by something other?
Well, again, I would doubt seriously that it was an advanced, certainly German technology. And people come up all the time with, well, they have these advanced propulsions, understood energy, et cetera, and you go, well, the reason you know that that's not true is we're speaking English. Kind of pejorative there, but they lost. And if you had something that was dramatically advanced, would not have been the case. Let me give you an example in Desert Storm. In Desert Storm, we took down the Iraqi air defense system.
Yeah, in a matter of days. I mean, it was like slam.
Oh, hours.
Yeah.
Minutes to hours. It was down, and we could fly almost with impunity. And the point was that our technological advance, they had pretty advanced Soviet equipment, and we were about 10 years ahead. So if a 10-year advance allows you to basically end the war in hours, that you can imagine that if somebody had this huge advantage in World War II, we would have seen it. And it just doesn't happen.
No. Well, we have a bunch of questions from our listeners that post on the question bank at forum.theparacast.com. One of our most prolific posters is Randall, who calls himself Ufology. He runs USI in Calgary, Alberta. And he has read your book, and he's posted a number of very probing questions here. And one of them is, when you were looking into evidence within the military for the existence of UFOs, how deep were you able to search AFSPC, the United States Air Force Space Command, their records, and specifically records for detection of targets that behaved in such a way as to suggest that they might have been some sort of alien craft? Were you able to make any headway with that?
A, we had a participant. B, I think I've given out his name. I met with the commander, discussed it with him. Certainly not on his radar.
Well, maybe it was on his.
No. Like I said, we had a member from there participating.
Okay, well, how about the NRO? This is something that's come up since the publication of your book. Your latest
NRO
book
was known well before that.
Right. Well, has anyone, to your knowledge, been able to crack that particular database? I mean, the NRO is in their purview, I would suspect, is to monitor the entire airspace and near space around our planet. And you would think that the NRO would have a leg up on any sort of incursions into our airspace if they were in a three-dimensional, sort of conventional way. Why has the NRO not come up as a player in monitoring incursions by UFOs into our airspace? And could this be because these objects are just appearing close to the ground as opposed to arriving from elsewhere? Because you never mentioned the NRO in your book.
Not sure. I would have thought, I had not, at the time we had addressed them, I did not, although I had people from there. Remember, the way NRO was set up, we talked about it, and it did become a separate organization, but it was really made up of participants from other organizations. For instance, the head of NRO was an assistant secretary of the Air Force. So there's an interrelationship between all of these organizations.
Let's do more talk about NRO in our next segment with Dr. John Alexander. And Gene and Chris and your questions, and you're in
the Paracast.
UnseenNow.com, proud sponsor of GCN. Unseen Now's unparalleled encryption tools keep your communications secure. GCN.
Dr. Wallach, an award-winning scientist, naturopathic physician, author of several books such as Dead Doctors Don't Lie, Let's Play Doctor, and a Nobel Prize nominee. Dr. Wallach will be here on September 15th and 16th. Wallach has proven that diseases classified as autoimmune were in fact caused by nutritional deficiencies. Get your free ticket to hear about the true causes of diseases. Call 763-291-5052. To receive your free ticket, call 763-291-5052.
We, the people grow cotton, weave fabric, engrave ink, embed strips and fibers to protect from counterfeit, then carting to a private bank, having it lent back at interest, forcing taxes to service debt. This capitalism, or was Jefferson correct when stating a central bank issuing the public currency is a greater menace to the liberties of the people than a standing army? Hi, Ted Anderson. I'm placing a free silver dollar in a book that explains our monetary system. Call for your copy, 800-686-2237. It's time to understand the system. Call 800-686-2237. That's 800-686-2237.
What good is a Big Berkey water filter?
We get that question a lot here at BigBerkeyWaterFilters.com. And in a word, the answer is protection. Protection from water main breaks, E. coli contamination, environmental chemical spills, pesticide runoff, chlorine taste and smell, and all forms of fluoride. Plus, Big Berkey water filters are the original gravity water filter system and most trusted on the market for a reason. Tested by multiple independent NSF EPA certified labs, they are the gold standard in water purification. At only 1.7 cents a gallon, a single set of filters can last for 5 to 10 years. That means big savings. Big Berkey, the one that's powerful enough to purify stagnant pond water. Get a Big Berkey today at BigBerkeyWaterFilters.com. GCN listeners receive 5% off all ceramic filter systems. Visit our website or call 1-877-99-BERKEY. That's 877-99-BERKEY. Big Berkey Water Filters, for the love of clean water.
Welcome back to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
On the Paracast, let me remind you again that if you want to get a free copy of the ebook version of Secrets of the Mysterious Valley from Chris O'Brien, free copy, go to theparacast.com, theparacast.com, sign up for our weekly newsletter. As soon as we get your email address, within a day or two, we'll send out your ebook copy, Secrets of the Mysterious Valley by Chris O'Brien. Dr. John Alexander is here. We were talking about NRO. Any more insights before we move on, Dr. Alexander?
Well, not really. I mean, the whole space community is involved, and as I pointed out, this notion that Star Wars, for instance, was developed to fight space aliens is just pure nonsense.
You know, there's right now, we have over on our forums at forum.theparacast.com a link to a TV documentary that makes a big deal of all these spurious claims to create the impression that we're at war with ET right now. Of course, if we were, it would be over 40 years ago. Right. And they'd win.
Correct.
Chris, more questions?
Well, yeah, my whole point is, and this is for the real believers in the extraterrestrial hypothesis. If there were craft coming from elsewhere into our near space or, in our atmosphere, the NRO would know about this unless they had some sort of cloaking technology that would allow them to bypass all the sensing equipment that we have circling this planet and have had for decades.
Oh, wait a minute. Satellite systems have picked up UFOs.
I know that. Ron Regehr,
but there's a critical issue here that I think gets ignored, and that is that these systems are designed for one purpose, and that is to determine threat. And what they do, you're overloaded with stuff that's flying around and that. So the primary question is threat or no threat. And you move everything you can into no threat. And remember, if you go back all the way to Condon report, the question to Condon was, are UFOs a threat, not are UFOs real? And he said, no threat. So unless there's something that becomes threatening about them, these agencies are going to discard it. And as you just pointed out, if there were a problem, it would have been over a long time ago, and that has not happened.
Well, we have some folks that were involved in the aerospace industry. One in particular, Ron Regehr, who was involved with the optic systems of several decades of our most classified spy satellite systems and other monitoring systems. And he stated fairly bluntly to me that there is an outward-looking component to most, if not every, satellite system, reconnaissance system that's been set up since at least the early 90s.
Remember that, and how many times we have been surprised. There's a lot of near-Earth objects, and we get surprised. And you see the headlines. Oh, whoops! There they go. An asteroid has just zipped by. So looking out is absolutely essential to things that are, potentially coming at us.
Well, how about the Black Knight? This 40-plus year object that's been talked about and kind of whispered about for decades that appears to be orbiting our planet. What do we know about that? What have you heard?
That's the first time I've heard it, so not familiar with that one at all.
Okay. Here's another question from ufology, from Randall. If you wanted to, would the military let you into Space Command Space Surveillance Monitoring Center to observe live tracking? It sounds like they've already done that.
I had been in the Space Center. Now, one of the things I point out, when I was in Laboratory Command, my last assignment was Director of Advanced System Concepts for the Army, doing all the basic stuff. My boss was a two-star general who, as a one-star, had been a ship commander, meaning they have brigadiers as ship commanders on there. Believe me, this was definitely not on his radar. He was fairly civil when we would talk about it, and it wasn't because he was evading everything. It was just that just not something that they're even vaguely familiar with. And one of the things we have heard, by the way, from people who do track these items, that you get it, is one of the things you learn quite quickly is that reporting objects that you can't explain is not career enhancing.
I would say that's an understatement.
Yeah. So you learn kind of quickly, okay, that's interesting, but again, if not a threat, I'm not going to. You hear this, when you talk to pilots as well. Do you want to report a UFO? No, that's okay. Well, I'll just
the opening scene to Close Encounters. But according to Mr. Reguer, who is a good friend of mine, actually, he just moved here recently to my neck of the woods. He was involved in the DSP program, and he did talk about the NORAD event, which was in '94, when NORAD called the Rio Grande County Sheriff in Colorado to report, a few acre-sized fire. That later it came out that a retired lieutenant colonel from Strategic Air Command, Jimmy Lloyd, who was a colonel as well, observed a flotilla of battleship-sized green glowing objects descend into the area where NORAD asked the local county sheriffs to exhaust all, efforts to determine what was the source of this particular heat bloom that DSP was able to detect. And he also mentioned the very famous 1976 Tehran UFO encounter with Iranian pilots, and said that DSP also monitored this particular event. And there's other events as well.
That's the first time I've heard that statement publicly.
Well, he's made it. Sorry, Ron. Oops.
Yeah, first time I've heard that one publicly. But yes, I had heard that many years ago.
Okay, here's one.
That they had confirmation, satellite confirmation.
Yeah, they did. And there was confirmation about that particular NORAD event, which I consider the Dark Horse UFO event of 1994 in the United States. It's an amazing series of events that ensued after that, plus some repercussions with particular individuals at NORAD or whomever was responsible for making the phone call. Evidently, there were some problems with their career enhancement after that. But are you aware of former NSA technical leader of intelligence, William Binney's, I think his name is, recent comments regarding UFOs? And this comes from Frank Stalter, who's...
Yeah, I have seen that, and I think that this is a very, very highly placed source, but the statements that I've seen, I believe, have been totally misread by the public.
Well, how about if I give you a direct quote?
Rather than being, go ahead.
My problem is, this is from William Binney. My problem is, just like the UFO thing, unless they start addressing these kinds of things, people's observations or basic measurements or factual evidence that simply exists, unless they start addressing them, there's always going to be questions, especially now with the government. How much do you trust? How much trust do you have in your government?
Well, yeah, I've seen the statement. I've commented on it online. I think they are misreading what he meant by that. I don't think he was taking UFOs as a serious issue, but rather just as an example of, how much publicity goes around in the commentaries. And, I don't think that he's even suggesting a potential cover-up or anything of that nature.
Maybe, of course, everyone who is looking for secret or supposedly secret UFO information is reaching for every hint of something talking about UFOs. We'll be back with Dr. John Alexander, who has plenty of comments about that and more with Gene and Chris. You're in
the Paracast.
Neighbors, are you tired of dealing with a slow web hosting provider? Well, check out A2 Hosting and their screaming fast Swift server platform. They even have SSDs that load pages 300% faster than the competition. Ready to give your site a speed boost? Well, tell you what, neighbors, head on over to a2hosting.com. That's A2, that's number 2, a2hosting.com. Check out their Prime hosting account. And get this, neighbors, they're even giving you an exclusive 25% off discount for all our listeners. 25%. And remember, their Guru Crew support team is standing by 24/7, 365 days a year to answer any of your questions. Now, to get the discount, use the coupon code GENE when you check out.
Mike Stenerson for Midas Resources. At no time in history have precious metals been more important, certainly not in my 22 years in the industry. The dollar has lost over 90% of its value in the last 60 years. No fiat currency has ever survived the government printing presses. Ours is not immune. The time is now to be proactive. 1-800-686-2237, extension 116. Anything tied to the dollar is at risk. CDs, annuities, 401ks, IRAs, stocks, bonds, you name it, so decide. Do you want to leave a legacy of wealth or debt for your family? The choice is yours. Call me at 1-800-686-2237, extension 116. That's 1-800-686-2237, extension 116. Be proactive, not reactive. Call 1-800-686-2237, extension 116.
On Facebook, on the news, and in conversations with friends, we're bombarded every day with advice on how to be healthier, from gluten-free and non-GMO diets to how much exercise and sleep the body needs. But how much have you heard about alkalizing the body? AlkaVision Plasma pH drops are a holistic and natural way to get your body's pH levels back in balance. Just a few drops in water will help your body rid itself of harmful waste. And even the healthiest of diets can be complemented with your daily use of AlkaVision Plasma pH drops. Who isn't looking for more vibrance, vigor, and energy? Now buy 2 bottles of AlkaVision Plasma pH drops and get $10 off your order. Visit alkavision.com or call 800-518-7615. AlkaVision Plasma pH drops are packed with a powerful combination of the most alkaline minerals and compounds. Open the door to greater health, vitality, and zest for life. Alkalize your body. Supercharge your health. Call 800-518-7615 or head to alkavision.com.
September is National Preparedness Month, so make it a September to remember by getting your emergency food supply from the Freeze Dry Guy. On sale this month, our 2014 Stew Butter and Potatoes unit. You'll get one number 10 can each of high-quality Mountain House chicken stew, vegetable stew with beef, pilot crackers, plus the highest quality dehydrated ABC stew, butter and potatoes for a total of 160 1/2 cup servings. Retail value $161.41, but not this month. The Freeze Dry Guy offers the 2014 Stew Butter and Potatoes unit for only $123.93. Save over $37. Plenty of protein, veggies, carbs for energy, and tasty, hearty, storable food with a shelf life of over 25 years. Call 866-404-3663. Free shipping to the lower 48 states. Click freezedryguy.com or call 866-404-3663. That's freezedryguy.com. Hurry! The National Preparedness Month sale ends September 30th from the Freeze Dry Guy. The finest freeze-dried and dehydrated foods available anywhere for long-term storage.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
Dr. John Alexander is with us with Gene and Chris in the Paracast. A reminder, get your copy of Secrets of the Mysterious Valley ebook from Chris O'Brien. Go to theparacast.com, theparacast.com. Just sign up for our newsletter and you'll get your copy. So you have things to say, Dr. Alexander, about how we closed last segment. Further comments?
Well, I was going to equate this back to the study when Jim Woolsey was the director of Central Intelligence, and he asked internally for a study to be done. I was trying to pull it up quickly and got it quite here. The guy from NRO, the historian from NRO, Gerald Haynes, is the one who did the study and reported back. His "oh, by the way" comment was equating UFOs to the JFK assassination, and it was just, no matter what we say, this was never going to go away.
So when we're looking for supposedly positive information about UFOs in any of these statements and or documents, maybe the statement wasn't meant to be positive.
I don't think so. I think he was just inside the community that would be taken of this is another pain in the ass, if you will.
That's the way I take it from what you say.
And that's it's interesting because I do know that the intelligence community in general had put in a filter system so that reports on UFOs could not come in, which I think is short-sighted. But if you remember, I think it was last year, maybe the year before, MOD shut down their office that was at least keeping track of things. And their point was that, the FOIA and the requests are just not worth the effort. Because they're a nuisance compared to the real-world problems that are, in fact, biting them.
Well, yeah, that makes sense if it's been determined to be a non-threat. Martin Gashwiasomo, the one of the last really surviving Hopi elders, trotted out this incredible series of what looked like Mayan glyphs. It was this linear piece of paper that went out several feet, and at the last panel, there's these objects hovering over Massa, who's got his club in his hand, ready to smack humanity upside the head. And there's these sombrero objects in the upper right hand portion of the glyph. And he looked at me and he said, these are the Watchers. And I said, what are you referring to? And he said, these objects up here, they're watching. And I asked him, well, do they have something, invested in this whole process? Are they being proactive in any way? He says, no, they're just watching. So perhaps the government or private industry or whomever, consultants to the, determination of threat status, perhaps they've come up with a determination that, hey, they're hanging around, they're checking us out, there's nothing we can do, so let's just ignore them. Let's, kind of publicly, just...
Let's remember, first of all, the government is not a monolith. It is made up of millions of people with differing kinds of experience and interest. We estimate, that about 7% of the adult population believe they've seen a UFO. That number is true for the military and for the rest of the government as well. So you have individuals who have had personal experience and talk to the reality. That, however, does not necessarily translate into, and therefore we'll have a program to study it.
Right. Actionable intelligence being acted upon.
Well, I mean, when we are talking about things that are terribly complex. What we talked about earlier on, the cost of and the complexity of research of these terribly, innocuous programs or observations that we're seeing. And then you go, okay, what percentage of your resources are you willing to commit to solve the insoluble?
Exactly. So out of sight, out of mind. Determine it's not a national security threat, and let's go on with our list of priorities. Here's a question from Constance, who's a newcomer to forum.theparacast.com. But boy, I'll tell you, this lady's on the ball. She asks great questions, and her question is, with respect, were you able to make that claim that government military has little to do with keeping UFO secrets, unquote? Because for decades now, UFO information and research has gone underground, out of the hands of elected government officials, into black projects controlled by the private interests that constitute the military-industrial complex. Do you think all this information has become privatized, out of the reach of FOIA, and we've been, we go ahead and delegate out some of this to private industry?
Oh, there's probably some minor stuff going on, but again, what I get into is, okay, let's talk about serious research and what it would cost, which would be huge. And then you have to do it. What people don't understand, I've done a whole chapter in my book on how the government works. And even the people who don't agree with me point to that as a great explanation. Government funding is a zero-sum game, and so there's not an infinite pot of money. So what you do is what we call rack and stack. You take all of your priorities and requirements and then take resources and apply them against them. So you have to get past the so what question. There's many, many things every agency has to do. Then there's a series of things they'd like to do. And then there's a series of things like, well, if I had the resources, I'd get around to it. So when you get to DOD, their responsibility is defense against threats. And so it's the same with space agencies. And, NASA is overtly hostile to the UFO topic. But you go in and you say, okay, I've got X amount of dollars. What am I going to apply them toward? Now, can you screw around at low levels? Thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars? Yeah, probably. If you get up too high, then somebody starts saying, wait a minute, if you got enough money, and this is what happened when I went to SDI, by the way, asking for funds. And the guy just said, hey, he had $5 billion at the time. He said, they're after my money. If I get caught, that was his word, if I get caught studying this, I will get skewered, not just for that money, but for other money. The assumption will be you don't know how to manage.
Right.
They'll also have a segment on Fox News where they'll say, look how your tax dollars are at work. They're going after UFOs. How can you let the government do this? This is total nonsense. It's Solyndra all over again. Let's do our break here.
I'm going to use a great example because this happened with the ESP study.
Yeah, let's talk about that in our next segment. We'll talk about the ESP study, Dr. Alexander, in our next segment. So we have a fabulous show this week. Incredible range of subjects and more to come. With Gene and Chris, you're in
the Paracast.
GCN, proudly sponsored by UnseenNow.com. Find out how to stop Big Brother in his tracks at UnseenNow.com. This is GCN.
Graphic Converter is the image manipulation tool for the rest of us. It does not use any database. You get full control of all your files. Want to view the images of a folder? Drag it into Graphic Converter and a powerful browser opens up to show your image files. You could use it for slideshows. You could use it to import images from digital cameras or from scanners. Need to do some image editing? You can do that too in Graphic Converter. Also print catalogs. Convert from so many formats I can't even list them. Download now to see if Graphic Converter is good for you, like 1.5 million other users. Guess what? You could save money when you buy Graphic Converter. Use the coupon code NIGHTOWL. Use the coupon code NIGHTOWL to get a special price for Graphic Converter. Go to lemkesoft.com. That's LEMKE soft.com. lemkesoft.com. LEMKE soft.com.
What good is a Big Berkey water filter?
We get that question a lot here at BigBerkeyWaterFilters.com. And in a word, the answer is protection. Protection from water main breaks, E. coli contamination, environmental chemical spills, pesticide runoff, chlorine taste and smell, and all forms of fluoride. Plus, Big Berkey water filters are the original gravity water filter system and most trusted on the market for a reason. Tested by multiple independent NSF EPA certified labs, they are the gold standard in water purification. At only 1.7 cents a gallon, a single set of filters can last for 5 to 10 years. That means big savings. Big Berkey, the one that's powerful enough to purify stagnant pond water. Get a Big Berkey today at BigBerkeyWaterFilters.com. GCN listeners receive 5% off all ceramic filter systems. Visit our website or call 1-877-99-BERKEY. That's 877-99-BERKEY. Big Berkey Water Filters, for the love of clean water.
Don't complain about your cable bill going up and up and up. Do something about it. Grab a pencil and jot down this special number, 1-855-905-MY-TV. The more cable TV rates go up, the better digital satellite TV looks. Say goodbye to the cable guy and get more of your favorite channels in 100% digital quality for less money. Call 1-855-905-MY-TV. Sign up for packages starting as low as $19.99 and there's no equipment to buy. You get free HD TV upgrade, a free DVR upgrade, and free professional installation. You control what you watch when you watch it. Record your favorite shows, pause and rewind live TV, even skip the commercials. Watch local channels too. At just $19.99, what are you waiting for? Pull out your major credit or debit card. Call 1-855-905-MY-TV. 1-855-905-MY-TV. Say goodbye to the cable guy. Cut costs and get more. 1-855-905-MY-TV. 1-855-905-MY-TV.
We live in a complicated society. Stressful issues are always popping up. Have you ever been treated unfairly by someone? Have you ever been overcharged for a repair? Have you ever signed a contract or a document? Worried about identity theft? How many times have you been in those unique situations where you just wanted to call an attorney to find out if you're right or wrong, or what your legal rights are? But every time you think about calling an attorney, what do you think about first? That's right. Who do you call, and how much will it cost? Our friends at Legal Shield have found a solution. With a nationwide network of 6,900 attorneys who average over 19 years of experience, Legal Shield's law firms take over 40,000 calls per week helping their members. For less than $20 per month, you can have access to Legal Shield on everything from the trivial to the traumatic. Let Legal Shield stand up for your rights at lsprotection.com. That's lsprotection.com. Or call 855-340-SAVE. 855-340-7283.
Results will vary from case to case.
Hi, this is Don Ecker, and you are tuned into the Paracast. Let me tell you what, you're going to hear stuff here that you probably won't hear anywhere else. Hear that, George Snorri?
So if the government is caught doing something really weird about investigations, studying UFOs, doing ESP research, Dr. Alexander, that causes a big mess, doesn't it?
Well, remember the remote viewing program, which became public in 95. Well, in 1980, December 1980, I published an article in Military Review called The New Mental Battlefield. Didn't cause a big hiccup until a few months later There was an article by Jack Anderson, who was then, one of the leading guys, a Fox News type guy, but, decades ago. They came out with, ain't it awful, look what the government's doing. They spent $20 million on remote viewing. Now, the number was totally made up, neither here nor there, but the point was that their approach was, look at how your government's wasting money. Interestingly, the public response was overwhelmingly positive, in our favor, like, I'm glad somebody's doing it, and people were aware that the Soviets were very active in the area. But the point was that, it was, as you just said, ain't it awful? Look what the terrible government, how they're wasting your money.
No.
And what usually the problem these days with the government, though, is they don't have enough money to do the things they have to do.
Correct. Yeah. Like I say, it is compared to what, $4 trillion, I think we've now spent. Gee, what, the global war on terror. I can tell you, we'll get into the exact thing, but the organization that I work with has been hit heavily, having their funding cut, because you got to pay for real world operations and things. I can tell you the internal funding battles right now are absolutely brutal.
Well, they think it's making the government more efficient, but the problem is here, if you starve the beast, their priorities get screwed up and everything is done wrong.
Yeah.
They've got too much on their plate.
Research is normally one of the first things that gets cut. Research and training are the become what we call the bill payers. When you, quote, look for money, you're not looking for money. The money is there. It's, where are you going to reappropriate funding?
Yeah, well, there's no solution to that until you rethink how you fund the government and how you make things happen. But what about things like black budgets, though, where tons of money are being funneled into secret projects, into private industry? Is that being starved too, or what?
Oh, yes. I mean, it does get oversight. It is not to the same degree as what we call the white world funding. But one of the things that I find disconcerting, totally different topic, but if you notice, President Obama has just come out and said we're going to send a few more troops to advise and really direct airstrikes in Iraq, potentially Syria, and things like that.
Let me just say briefly, they say, of course, we're not going to have troops on the ground, but what are they doing, floating in air?
No, he has announced today that they are sending more.
Right, sounds like Vietnam Redux revisited.
We're talking hundreds, not thousands or tens of thousands. But my point was going to be that in Afghanistan today, and was true in Iraq, the ratio of active duty forces to contractors doing these things was more than 1-to-1 in favor of contractors. So what we've started doing is just contracting warfare, which I think is a very dangerous, and the problem is that it does not get the same media attention. I mean, they've had lots of casualties that occurred in contractors that just never get reported.
Right. Well, we were talking before, and I'd like to revisit the conversation about some of the very groundbreaking attempts at training, research, and developing techniques in terms of psychic warfare. And we asked you this last time you were on the show, but this is another question that's up at forum.theparacast.com. And it has to do with the John Ronson nonfiction book, The Men Who Stare at Goats, and some.
You could have gone all day.
I really enjoyed the film. I took it as a totally fictionalized account of those very heady years. I must say, within the the more exotic realms of psychic research within the military. But I've heard it said that you, John Alexander, were loosely fictionalized with the character of Kevin Spacey, who was dosed with LSD.
That was George Clooney. Clooney was a composite character. Jeff Bridges.
So they composited you as George Clooney. I love that. Oh, that's excellent.
That's a badge of honor.
Yeah, I mean, come on, have George Clooney play you in a movie, even if it's fictionalized. I think that's quite a testament to how courageous you were back in the early to mid 70s to become involved in such, as you put it, non-career enhancing roles and interests, professed interests within the military. Well, so what happened to Project Aquarius? What happened to these efforts with General Stubblebine and was it the Earth Battalion Corps? What was the name of the group?
First Earth Battalion.
The Earth First Battalion.
That was never a military, organization. That was literally owned by Jim Channon. Was a notional unit and things that we worked with. Aquarius, I don't know. The remote viewing program, Stargate, became known eventually. Stubblebine was basically forced to retire. But the problem with Ronson's book, and again, if you go to my website, I have a pretty good explanation of what's real and what's not real.
Right, a very good explanation.
Ronson's book was about 5% real, 95% fiction, and then they made the movie. So
it sounds like great disinformation. That's about the appropriate.
He didn't care. He absolutely didn't care. There was a guy by the name of John Sargent in all of this who got screwed in the movie because he was the guy who actually found all of us, and I did interview with him. Goats did die. It had nothing to do with being stared at. There's nothing that supports any of that story.
And so Stubblebine didn't try to run through a wall in his office and then end up on the floor wondering what happened?
Well, I'll give you again, I've explained this in some detail online, but Stubblebine was hyper allergic to bee stings. So, there are people who 2 or 3 stings would go into anaphylactic shock. He was one of those, kind of tough in the military. I was actually evacuated in Vietnam because attacked by VCBs. But a long story. But
whoa,
Bert was going out to the Walter Reed Hospital and getting shots on a continuous basis to build up his immunity to bee stings. And what he would do is mentally say, hey, my skin is, the atoms are mostly space, the needle is mostly space, so therefore they ought to be able to pass through each other without causing pain.
You know what? If that works in the real world around here where we do have bees, I'll do it. Dr. John Alexander is with us with Gene and Chris. One more segment to come. You're in
the Paracast.
Free from the shackles of corporate America, we're the place for independent thinkers. GCN.
Attack of the Rockoids has been well received by critics and readers alike. It's a thrill-a-minute story you'll never forget. A former U.S. military intelligence officer is haunted by intense dreams about a beautiful woman pleading for his help after a terrible battle in outer space. But the dreams turn out to be true and thrust him into a telepathic love affair with a woman whose faraway planet is intent on destroying the Earth. And now the gripping tale continues in The Coming of the Protectors. It's the second book of the Rockoids trilogy, a galaxy-spanning adventure that pits our hapless heroes against powerful, fanatical enemies that threaten the lives of freedom-loving beings everywhere. Attack of the Rockoids, and The Coming of the Protectors. Classic science fiction at its best, available now. For more details, visit rockoids.com. That's ROCKOIDS.com.
Next to water and food, you need a safe, storable fuel supply for your preparedness needs. Spare fuel is the answer. Spare fuel can be used in any gas-powered vehicle or generator. Spare fuel is perfect for any unforeseen out-of-gas emergencies. Unlike gasoline, spare fuel is safe to store with your other supplies, and it can be stored for many years. Go to GetSpareFuel.com for special pricing. That's GetSpareFuel.com.
This is Dan Pilla. Do you owe the IRS money you can't pay? Are tax debts crippling you? I've defended people from the IRS for over 30 years. I've helped thousands, and I can help you too. I wrote the book on IRS settlement, and I'm telling you, there's no such thing as a hopeless case. Call 800-34-NO-TAX to finally get free of IRS debt. With the IRS's new programs, there's never been a better time to solve your problem. Call 800-34-NO-TAX. That's 800-34-NO-TAX, or my website, danpilla.com.
I will never forget the day my son Jeremy told me he hated me and slammed the door in my face. I'm behavioral therapist Janet Lehman. Behavior problems can turn the child you love and your life into a nightmare. That's why my husband James and I created the Total Transformation, the step-by-step program that shows you how to fix the worst behavior problems and get your child to respect and listen to you again. No matter what the behavior, defiance, backtalk, angry outbursts, disrespect, we can help you stop it. Now you can get the Total Transformation for free. All you need to do is get the program and let us know how it works for you. You can keep it forever for free.
Limited number of free programs available. Call now. 1-888-912-1595. 1-888-912-1595. That's 1-888-912-1595. 1-888-912-1595.
If you need to say happy birthday, happy anniversary, thank you, or simply I'm thinking of you, ProFlowers.com is the key. ProFlowers has stunning bouquets, like the best-selling 100 blooms for $19.99. Plus, ProFlowers will include a glass vase for free. Sending someone a wonderful surprise of beautiful flowers sent fresh from the fields is easy. Choose the bouquet you like, pick the delivery date, and each order is 100% guaranteed. Plus, all bouquets from ProFlowers are guaranteed to last at least 7 full days. Beautiful, fragrant flowers, picked fresh and sent to your loved one for lasting enjoyment. To get this incredible savings and send someone 100 gorgeous blooms with a free vase for $19.99, go to proflowers.com, click the blue microphone in the top right corner, and enter code PLOW. That's proflowers.com. Click the mic and enter code PLOW.
This is Jerome Clark, author of the UFO Encyclopedia and other books. You're listening to the Paracast.
Dr. John Alexander, is this mind over matter? Then, so can I will myself not to feel cold?
You can do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, that's actually an easy one. Geez, there's monks.
I have met a guy here who does a show. He's known as Zamora, the torture king. And the saying you may have seen on television, there's several people who do it, but they take a needle and push it through their arm. That is not a trick. Now, knowing where to put the needle and ignoring the pain. And one of the things that Zamora had told me is he's actually studied at, I believe, UCLA. And the question was, does he feel pain? And the answer was yes, he felt the pain, but he processed it differently from the way most of us do.
Yeah, that's a handy talent to have. Well, we're going to have you back, obviously, John, for another show, because I really wanted to get into, a blow-by-blow journal of your trips around the world, looking into shamanic systems. I think this is an incredibly potential for incredibly potentially, important bridge, as I said at the beginning of the show, between primitive systems and high technology. And the way some of these primitive systems have evolved in terms of a shaman being a conduit between the spirit world and, the world that we all inhabit every day. I really want to get into this later on when we have you back, but what have you gained from all these journeys that you've made around the world, to Mongolia, down to Peru, Brazil, to Antarctica, of all places, swimming with humpback whales just a couple of weeks ago, and looking into various shamanic systems and practitioners of this belief system? How do you see your research in this realm going forward, and what have you learned so far?
Well, there's, I guess, two areas. One is that our model of the world, the traditional reductionist model of Western physics, is, if not wrong, it's severely limited by alternate realities and the things that we've seen. The other is that we're dealing with very, very complex questions, and that we need to put best and brightest minds, and they need to be able to do that without risking their reputations and careers. And many people put their career on the line to explore these things, and that shouldn't be necessary.
Any questions left, Chris?
Okay, we have another question here from our listeners at forum.theparacast.com. This one comes from Wade Ridsdale, who's a longtime poster on the forums. And again, folks, if you want to ask questions of our very, John, thank you so much for being here. You're, one of my top guests to have on the show. And if our forum posters would like to ask questions, please post them at the forum thread at forum.theparacast.com. And Wade has a question for you here, and he's wondering if there's any particular events that you personally witnessed that you feel would validate your thinking that the UFO enigma is more than just a matter of extraterrestrial visitation. And I would add, have you seen anything, your journeys around the world visiting shamanic systems, have you seen anything that just defied your level of belief?
A level of belief?
Well, have you seen anything that you just, it just did not make sense from your rational worldview?
Well, many, many things. But the one area that I'll give as examples was last year traveling in West Africa. We were in Togo and Benin and had voodoo ceremonies. And I have videotape. I've got a few pictures, again, on my website, but I've got video that I have and won't post yet. But I'm doing things with fire, standing in it, sitting in it, eating it, that just cannot be done. And I have taken it to, I have friends here who are magicians, and guys like Jeff McBride, who's the magician's magician. He's a guy who trains many of them. I look at it and just say, A, it's real, B, you can't do that. There are no tricks to doing that.
How about UFO experiences? Have you ever seen any unidentified aerial phenomena that you could not identify?
No. As I point out in the book, my personal experience, observation, is very, very small. I was up with James Gilliland at his place in Washington.